Morning. I'm John Wirtz, Montgomery County Tea Party. This morning we're here with Representative Mark Keough running for Montgomery County Judge. It's November 4th. With me are Dennis Tibbs, Pat Tibbs, and Larry Rogers. As we just discussed, Representative Keough, we'll go ahead and start off with a 5-minute opening, and then we'll begin the Q&A.
First of all, thank you all for giving me the opportunity, for reaching out to me to be able to vet with you. Because we have common beliefs in terms of fiscal responsibility, social responsibility, and those areas, I think, are points of contact for us that we can, as we have done in the past, reach the county to do the right things. We've done it in the district. I know it can be done in the district. We've attempted to do it at the state level. But we certainly can reach the county. The reason that I'm running for this office really started a number of months ago when I had conversations with those who are currently in office. And as we talked about issues having to do with taxes and people screaming and fighting about the issue of property tax, and we were in the House of Representatives, and I shared with those who were there, I said, look, we are a republic. We represent the people. And the people are screaming, and we're not listening. I didn't say we're, you are. And it was kind of like, well, we just don't know if we can afford this. We need to check with this and this. I said, wait a second. The people who are in charge in the municipalities and the cities and whatnot, they're not the ones who put you in place, it's the people. And the result of that is that if you don't make a change in listening to the people and acting upon what they want, you're going to be out of office. It's basically what I said. I was not thinking at that time of running. But then I have people walking up to me in the House of Representatives asking me, Mark, what's going on in Montgomery County? Over a period of months, I began to really see that Montgomery County has a huge black eye in the state, all the way to Austin. Everybody knows. I have talked to numerous people outside of our area that go, man, Montgomery County has such a bad reputation. It has to do with division, it has to do with leadership, it has to do with a lot of things. But I thought, man, where is the best place for me to reach the most amount of people in the shortest amount of time? And for me, I can stay where I'm at, representing 180,000+ people, fighting with 181 people in the House of Representatives, 180, myself 181, and in the Senate, and then having the governor sign off on it, or come here and be able to begin implementation of change immediately, supervising a court, supervising an agenda, having input into all these various areas. There are obviously a problem, whether it has to do with roads, conflicts of interest, whether it has to do with the use of the property, of school property, or whether it has to do with county property, taxpayer property, basically. Whatever it may be, those kinds of things. Those can be addressed and be changed immediately. So I thought, this is the place. And so I decided to do it. And so here, that's why I'm here. I believe I could reach the most amount of people in the shortest amount of time. I also have a business background. One of the reasons why I believe that our spending and some of our accounting principles can be adjusted is because the people in charge have spent careers in business. They're used to spending money. Why? Because it's not theirs. Because they have no stake in it. It's the people's money. So you hear things like, and I can take it and I can show you, I can document this, where we need to increase the tax base. That's what they said. They want to increase the tax base. And we're all assuming, okay, if we put in all that development and we increase the pool, our taxes should go down. But what is amazing is we increase the tax base, we lower the rate, but now we have an increase in values, and what does that do? It raises us to write a bigger check every year. Now this year it was different in the county tax. My Willis tax wasn't, it was more. But in the house I own here, it was the same. So, or a little bit less because of people standing up to our county government and saying, no, we want our homestead exemption. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But as it relates to me running for the office, I believe there are great opportunities to make changes as a business person, having run a business, having chased inventory, having chased cash, having had to manage accounts. I never had the luxury of looking at a budget and then saying, okay, we're going to just kind of take what we believe is an idea of where we want it to go based upon the previous year plus adjustments, and then plan for like a 2018 budget and still have not seen where all the money was spent in the 2017 budget. We got to look back to 2016. Who runs a business that way? We're missing a whole year. Now, you can dig it out and find it, but it's not there where it obviously should be. So these are the kind of things that I believe that we can make some changes and immediately see results. We're divided. I believe we can become unified. I honestly believe that. We are Montgomery County. This is my home. This is my home. I don't have to do this. I want to do it. I didn't have to do my legislative deal, but I did it because I want to serve the people, and so that's why I'm here.
All right. Thank you. Okay, let's jump right into it.
Let's go.
We'll start with a yes or no. You do believe that we all have a free will and that we're accountable for those decisions to our Maker, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, so let's address the elephant in the room
Okay.
that I think most folks in the Tea Party that supported you for your run for the legislature would like to know.
Right.
Your seconding speech of Liberal Speaker Joe Strauss, as if that in itself wasn't troubling enough to many of your local constituents, including the MCTP. You also specifically seem to infer that many of your colleagues in the House, including Speaker Strauss, were chosen by God.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still feel that way now after no less than 50 Republican executive committees and groups rebuked the Speaker recently for his snubbing of what might be considered true Christian conservative legislation, forcing him to forego a future run for speakership?
Here's my question to you about that question. Do we want to talk theology here? I'll be glad to, because I can talk it. And we can talk about the scripture.
2 minutes, however you want to answer it.
Okay. I voted against the speaker. I was one of the gang of 19 in the first round. I dealt with all that, managed to get some legislation done. During that time period, I was able to watch the speaker and how he operated in the House, so I had a frame of reference on how he ran things. Coming up to the second one, I plan on voting against him again. I got a telephone call from my predecessor and soon to be my successor that said everybody's going to vote in favor of the speaker. You need to do that, otherwise you're not going to get any legislation done. I have a person sitting in the car with me on a speaker and heard that. So I said, okay, I'll do that. I'm going to vote for that. I'll go along with everybody. Jonathan, Stickland, the guys, and Schaefer and all the guys in the Freedom Caucus. Okay, let's go. Well then, a few days later, I get a telephone call from the Speaker's office asking if I'd do a seconding speech. So immediately in my mind I'm thinking, if I say, okay, let me think about this, knowing that the reason everybody's voting for him is we're all on equal playing field, it's a record vote and we want to get some things done. If I say I want to think about this, now I'm at a disadvantage. If I say I don't want to do it, I'm at a for sure disadvantage, and so I chose to do it. It was a fast decision, and at the time I gave it a lot of thought before I did it. When I spoke it, and I actually spoke, if you'll notice in the speech, I never mentioned policy. I always talked about how it was run. And I wanted to do a good job at it. I worked at it because I wanted the county to be proud of me for at least my presentation, being able to speak to the speaker. I will also say, however, that if I had to do that again, I'd take my chances with legislation in the future and would not do that again, because the second session did not turn out anyway the way the first session did. And I think all of us did a disservice by not showing our true colors to begin with.
Yep.
And if you look at my voting record and some of the amendments I stood for, I faded some serious heat. I lost my vice chairmanship for CPS as a result of my immigration deal that I did, my amendment that I put forward on the floor. So, would I do it again? No.
All right, thanks for your
You
candor.
betcha.
Was he elected by acclamation or unanimous?
No, it was a unanimous record vote. Green on the deal. Everybody pushed.
That wasn't my question.
Okay.
Okay, I'm so glad to hear that you got a county tax decrease, but I didn't get one.
What now?
County tax decrease.
Yeah. My Willis home did not.
Yeah. Well, my Montgomery County home did not, and there are a couple of reasons. One of them is the county passed that 20% exemption, excluding seniors. And two parts to this complaint. One is that I've talked to a lot of people in the county, and they just don't see a problem. 20% of the people were excluded from the exemption. And they just don't see that as a problem. The other half is, it's an easy problem to remedy. The legislature does this sort of thing. They've done it at least 3 times in the last decade or 2. And they immediately pass legislation to fix it. Now, they're not fixing it now because nobody's asking. So somebody in the county needs to approach them and ask them to fix this problem that they're very familiar with. So the question is, are you going to have somebody on your staff that keeps up with things like that have an impact on citizens? And if it's not fixed by then, and it probably won't be, are you going to take a stand and ask the legislature to do something about it?
Absolutely, without question. First question, are you going to put somebody on staff to be able to do this? Absolutely. Do you know that a few years ago, we missed many millions of dollars because we were not paying attention to funds that were available to us because of oil-related damage to roads? I was there as a new rep. I just been elected, and I just happened to be there in the summer, and it was in the summer of 14, going into, or after I'd won the primary, and I was there getting ready to go in January, and we never collected it. Nobody even knew about it.
That's because truck damage?
Truck damage to the roads. That was mind-boggling. And so I think back on that, and I think about the Texas Association of Counties. I'm not against Texas Association of Counties. I think there's benefit to groups getting together, talking about what's important. I think it can be bad, it can be good. But that does not allow us to put our intellects on the shelf and let them do our thinking for us. So I believe that we need to have 2 or 3 people who pay attention to what is going on in Austin. And I'm not paying them any extra to do it. This is your job, you have the ability, and it's going to go along with what you do now. I want to know, you have a meeting once every couple of weeks, and I want an update of what has happened in relationship to the counties. Because you will see me in the House of Representatives, in the committee meetings, fighting for my county. I've not ever seen anybody do that. They do, I'm sure, but I've not seen them do it. And in fact, I'm not going to spend all my time in Austin, but I think my 2 terms there to help see what is going on give me the opportunity, the ability to go there and to fight on behalf of what we're doing here, as I know the process. So yes, all we have to do is we have to know what that legislation is, what we need to do. Now, that's not a blanket, we're going to do whatever the people want. We have to look at it, and I think you have to decide. But if it operates within our fundamental core principles as conservatives, socially conservative, fiscally conservative, absolutely, why wouldn't we do that? So I'm on that.
All right.
Got it on film. I think it's great,
I'll call you.
please do.
Okay, in our questionnaire, first question was, this is a Republican primary race. Do you promise, if elected, to abide by the Republican Party platform? If not, please enumerate. You said yes and talked about the 266 planks. Can you give me your overview on a couple of the planks that you really like and really stand out to you?
The most important one to me out of all of them is our pro-life plank. My position on that, I mean, guys, I'm a social conservative. Another plank that I think is extremely important is our view on marriage and upholding the Texas Constitution and not legislating from the bench. That is a travesty, what happened. I immediately, when the judge, can I talk about that for a second?
Sure.
Back in the first session, when the judge over in Austin decided he was going to marry this same-sex couple, I started thinking about that, and I thought, no, man, we need to do something here, and I know that it is within my purview as a legislator to impeach judges or whoever, elected officials that are related to the state, for bad behavior. So I called up David Barton. Actually, I called Rick Green. Rick Green loved it. And he said, man, we need to do this, but you need to get somebody else involved with you who's got some experience. You're just a freshman. He called me back at 11:30 at night, and he had talked to David Barton, and David Barton and Rick Green wanted to come down, and they wanted to start that process, see if we could get it going, but we needed I was just a freshman. I don't want to say just a freshman, but I was a freshman. And they were looking at that, they wanted to make sure it got done. So we talked about a few people, and I contacted one of those who contacted me back. And he said, well, before we do that, We really need to see what the Fifth Circuit Court's gonna do, and we need to see what Ken Paxton's gonna do. We don't wanna mess their deal up. I said, wait a second. If we do that, what happens if Ken Paxton can't get anything done, and it gets, even if the Fifth Circuit Court turns it down, what's gonna keep it from being turned down up at the national level? I said, but I'm a freshman, I'm gonna defer to you guys, Rick and David Barton. I've not met David Barton, I've not talked to him, but this is what Rick Green told me. And so I defer to you guys. I said, but what happens if it gets there? We have one of two choices. We can secede, or we can nullify and then be civil disobedience. It's going to take just a second on this. Okay. So here we go. And sure enough, it gets passed down. They literally legislate from the bench. I wrote a document if anybody wanted to see it. I read the entire case. I saw where they had violated the Constitution. I put this in writing. I sent it to the Conservative Coalition in the House of Representatives. It was quite lengthy, but
For nullification?
no, for the gay marriage issue.
Right,
and how it
right,
needed
right,
to be
right.
addressed, and
To
what the
nullify
Supreme
that.
Court had done, yeah.
Okay.
And anyway, so it gets passed, everybody starts living like it's the law, even though it never went through Congress. They legislated from the bench, under the guise of, we want to make this fabulous institution available to everybody. Well, who gives you the right to do that? Nobody said a word. I couldn't believe it. The governor didn't say a word. You know, and I know he's not in favor of it, so I wasn't sure really what all was going on there. So I called my senior representative. What are we going to do? You know what he said? I said, man, are we ready to secede? And I knew he wasn't going. I didn't even think that way. But he said, well, Mark, it's kind of like this. I was at church the other day, and Mrs. Smith walked up to me at church, and she said, Representative so-and-so, I think we should secede. Well, Mr. Smith, can I ask you a question? Sure. Are you ready to give up your Social Security, your Medicare? Why, Representative, I can't do that. There's our secession. Okay, what about civil disobedience? That's not going to happen. That's what I was told. Okay, so here we go. Had an opportunity to just shoot something over the bow. Just shoot a cannon over the bow to show them we're not going to roll over and play dead on this. Let me tell you, in our local district right now, if the person, our conservative running for the township, does not win, we have just empowered that other side, because it's a nonpartisan race. We have empowered them, and in the most conservative district, in the most conservative county, the most conservative state, I promise you this will make national news. And it will empower them to keep rolling. So we've got to speak out against this stuff. Proceed. Was that longer than what you expected?
That was very quick.
That was a long one, I'm
Yep,
sorry.
yep, yep. Okay, questionnaire in the budget area. And the question was, will you vote to limit budget increases to a factor based on population growth and inflation?
Yes.
And you said yes. And were you aware of the Citizens Committee budget proposals, and did you agree with their recommendations, if you're aware of them?
Yes, I was aware of them. I did briefly go over them, and I can stand with all those. Again, I have to go back and rethink them, but I remember because I saw it and I saw who wrote it and whatnot. I will tell you, though, that there has been from 2000 to 2017, in terms of just taxes, a 453% increase in taxes, with an 83% increase in population. Tell me, how does that work? Population plus, I keep hearing the word population growth plus inflation. That's nonsense. That's not happening. It's not happening at all. And so I absolutely am in favor of that, and we'll fight to support that. And it's, you know, from my position, one of the primary functions, I think, of the county judge is that he looks at the budget, and he's required to make recommendations. I can't get everybody to vote in my direction, but I can sure make it known, you know, that we can't do this, and based upon that, I'm going to entertain a motion for many of you that we reverse this, we go back to the drawing board and start over on it. Who will second that or who will make that motion? And if they don't, that's all I can do. You know, so yes, I am. And about that, when it comes to roads and bridges or the budget, this is how I really feel. I really do believe this. We are a republic. And what a republic means is that we have certain inalienable rights that are granted to us by our Creator. You all know this. They're not granted to us by government. We, as the people, elect those individuals to represent us. And when we stand against something and they double down to keep it in place and won't listen, well, we've got term limits. It's called the vote. That's why I'm running. Because these guys, in our current governance, and what I've seen, it's all over the place, but in our current governance, in many ways, I think they do. There's things they do right, for sure. But one of the things that I think they don't do is they don't listen. A great example is 20% tax exemption. Somebody help me with this. Why does it take an individual citizen who then gets to James Nowak, who presents the 20% to 20% homestead exemption, that 12 counties, since its inception, and the beginning of that whole deal started back in the late 60s. I don't know if y'all know that, and I researched it. I went and I looked at the laws. But here's what happened. Everything led up to where it was actually put into place in the late 70s. And so it's been around a long time. 254 counties.
Mm-hmm.
And watch this. 12 of them have never received it, except through the school. And I'm sitting there going, and I thought we received it. Everybody thought they received it until it was brought to the attention. And then when I talked to them about it, well, I don't know if we can afford it. What do you mean we can afford to do it? 254 counties, only 12 are not doing it? You guys need to come out of the ether on this deal, and this is what the people are screaming about, and every year they look at writing a bigger check. And you're not going to listen to them? And then they turn right around and double down, man. I could not believe it.
Highest paid commissioners and judges in the state.
Well, if we're ready to talk about that, I'll talk about that.
Yep.
But I'm not going to tell you any plans or anything like that. Last thing I want to do is run on trying to get people to support me, then I'm going to just come in and cut their pay. There's other ways to do this than just cut pay.
Yeah.
So,
Trump can do it.
pardon me?
Trump can do it.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, I think if Miss Smith moved to Mexico, she'd still get her Social Security check.
You know, that's possible.
Better, 'cause that's where I'm going.
But hey, but here's the deal. Why move to Mexico? Let's just let Mexico move here.
Yeah.
We already.
It's all part of the deal.
Okay. You know, the Texas Association of Counties has the rankings from all the counties for their population and for their budget. And in population, they rank us, you know, down around 10 or so. But in budget, we're like number 3 or 4. So that's a big problem.
Yeah.
Salaries are a piece of that problem.
Right.
I don't know how big a piece they are. But you know, Montgomery County pays elected officials across the board more than our 3 neighbors combined.
Right.
That is absurd, but the worst part about it is the culture in the county, just like the denying the seniors. Nobody think that's a problem. You know, we get more than almost Governor Perry, or
Sure.
Governor Abbott,
Right.
and we get more than all these other counties combined. So,
We're according to a recent article on the 95 Theses that was presented, that we were second. Well, I looked at it and I saw third, that we're third highest in terms of commissioners and county judge. So we're right up there. We're 16% over the governor.
and if you were to draw a line of where we fall on the graph in population, starting with Grimes and Liberty and those guys, with the other end at Harris County and Tarrant County, you know, in population, we'd be way down here, but in salary, we'd be way up here.
Part of the problem is you got some discrepancy there, because we have a census. I mean, they're still showing us in the low 300s. I promise you, by the time the census comes out in 2020, we're going to be upwards just shy of 600,000 people.
But we're just 3
So
or
there's
4%
something
short in
else.
salary from those big counties.
Yeah,
We're a lot more
yeah.
than 3 or 4% short in size.
Yeah.
So I forgot the question.
Well, but here's
what are you gonna do?
Well, here's the deal. It's like anything else. It's part of, Dennis, it truly is. It's part of a bigger picture of symptoms or problems. And it's a process. I would tell you, my business, my background in running huge businesses, not as huge as the county, but $100 million business. You know, we are constantly looking for ways to cut. I was talking to my campaign manager the other day, and as a general manager, I was so much in the habit of saying no. Everybody wants, we have a good month, first thing you know, man, we need a new alignment machine, man, we need a new paint booth. No. What does it take to fix it? What does it take to use what we have? We can even clean it up, let's paint it, and do the math on it. we will turn around in 2 seconds and buy everything new, like we have to do that so that we can get an A+ rating from whoever we're supposed to get it from. And the fact of the matter is, there are so many ways to keep the budget down if we just pay attention. But people who have never had to do that, who have spent the last 25 years in public, quote, service, who used to be on the other side but have now come to become ours, are still operating as if it's just an unending well of resources. And it's with our strong, here's one of the difficulties of a strong conservative Republican body, citizenry, is we go to work every day, we work hard for our families, we come home at night, everything's good, and we have a different work ethic and everything, and most people just aren't paying attention, and so it gets away from us over a period of time, and it goes from generation to generation. There is an opportunity, I think, there that every one of the things that I'll do, and I built a good portion of my career by fixing broken car dealerships and going into those and looking at them and seeing where they were. My first general manager's job, you guys, I was offered the job. I was 3.5 years in the car business, and I did not know how to read a financial statement. They called me and said, would you want to be a general manager? I said, I can't even read a financial statement, no. They said, there's 2 things that we like. 1, we know we can trust you. Number 2, you have a knowledge, as we're right in this line of vehicle stores, you have a knowledge of pre-owned vehicles that we need, and you've excelled in that. Okay, we'll teach you. And so I met with them. Big money guys. And as soon as I got there, they sent me to Overland Park, Kansas, to the NCM 20 groups, where for 2 days, I walked in, there's these guys, they were all businessmen, financial statements laying out. Here's where you're gonna sit, would you like a cup of coffee? Let's begin. And they walked me through, meticulously through a financial statement and how all these various things related together. And how if I stayed to the plan, the store could make money. And I want to tell you, immediately these stores started making money. And I stayed there the entire time I was in the car business. It was absolutely amazing. This is what the county needs to do. The county has a budget, and then they have the adjusted budget. Now, when you go and look at previous budgets, you look at previous adjusted budget. I can show you, it's right here. Adjusted budget. Wait a second. We have contingency account. Where did we get the money to make the adjustment? Did it all come out of contingency that's in the budget? No. Here's what you guys do. You guys will set aside, you've got a budget item, you have a line item on the budget, and you will over-accrue monies towards that. If you got, for instance, if you plan for 10 employees and say, just simple, I'm not saying this exact, but if you have 10 employees, you guys hire 5, but you put the money out there for 10. At the end of the year, we go, and we used to call this in the car business, we would greenhouse these resources. We'd pull them in, we would clear accounts, and they would just go out and clear, and then it would go into, I knew where it was because I was general manager. I generally brought it into other income on the financial statement. And if we had a 13th month, which I don't suggest, but if we did, sometimes in a broken deal, you go into the 13th month because there's stuff that's not your fault that you got to get rid of, and so this is what it could have been, so this is why we have a 13th month financial statement. But you go in there with that, and you put that in, it goes into other income on the statement, and all of a sudden everybody knows where every penny is. The money that is cleared, as far as I can see, and somebody can show me if I'm wrong, where does that money go? We call it slush funds, that sort of thing. My question is where does the adjusted income on a budget come from? And then why does the 16 budget become the basis for the 18 budget? The 18 budget. How does that work? We don't even know what we did in 17. We're budgeting against 18. And so that our 17 budget was based on 15, our 16 budget was based on 14. Do y'all know that? That's how if you look at it, that's if you follow, because 17 and 18 have the same numbers. That's ridiculous. You telling me that with all of our technology, and our car stores do it, furniture store, everybody does it. If you're in business, you guys have been in business. At the end of the year, if we started working on our budgets in September in the car business. I made everybody when I was running it and when people were over me. We started in September. We had a budget projected on the last 3 months of what we had done over the last couple of years. And we plugged those numbers in. We started off January 1 where we knew where we were on the budget, and it was zero-based budgeting. We're starting all over. Now, we could project a 5% increase. We had to look at where we were because we always wanted to be increasing. But we also had to take into account market conditions, availability of inventory, all that stuff. What these guys do is they take 2 years ago, I know, but work with me here, just for a second. This is really important stuff. Because what they do is they take an adjusted budget with monies that really nobody knows where they're getting it from, can't come unless it comes from contingency, and they'll buy or whatever, then they use that as the basis, then the next year will leap up from the adjusted budget, not the budget. It's one thing if we do it from the budget. They do it from the adjusted budget to develop their 2-year out deal without us ever looking at what they actually spent in the year after they did the adjusted budget. And I thought, does everybody do that?
Yes.
So my next project is to look at other counties. I know some individuals in the House of Representatives who are true accountants. They have accounting firms. And they'll be able to tell me just by talking to those guys where they're at and how they operate. But that's no way to run a business. And it's no way to run accounting. I want to know when I start 2018 what I spent in 2017. Why is that so hard? I think it's intentional. Because it's there. And I'm going to tell you how come I know it's there. Because I was looking for monthly financial statements and we couldn't find them. And we finally stumbled across them in the auditor's section. And you can go and you can look at the financial statements and see where they are in relationship to all these accounts.
It's been pretty boggling
Yeah.
over the years
Anyway,
trying to
so go
follow.
ahead. Sorry, thank you for indulging me.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Larry, we got about 15 minutes.
Okay. On our questionnaire, what are the 3 largest challenges currently facing this position? And your roadmap to address them. First one, you responded as transparency. And your answer was this is one of the most basic functions of government, being transparent with people. I plan to address this, but working more closely with the citizens of the county. We should have more of a voice in the decisions to be brought before the court. Are there other areas of transparency besides just bringing
Sure.
before the people in the court?
Sure. First of all, about the people in the court, I have a plan. I think we need a comprehensive Montgomery County road plan. The difficulty is, as I see it, my evaluation of it is that every commissioner is like the Wild Wild West. They're on the frontier by themselves coming up with their own plans. I think recently when our friend here Bob was talking about monies that was taken away from road and infrastructure. Well, if we're growing, and we are growing, and people buy property, they can do what they want with that property. But the fact of the matter is we're going to continue to grow, and we need to figure out a way to get the people through here. But what we won't do is we won't talk to each other. And now we have a Texas open meetings deal, so I contacted our county attorney, and I said, when I get elected, I would like to figure out a way to get everybody together. Tell me the process to do that. He says, here's what you do. You go to Commissioner's Court, you take a motion to have a study with citizen input where we have workshops. And we come up with a total, there's so much combined genius in this county. I promise you 4 people cannot figure this out. They can't, 5 people. It has to come from citizen input, engineers, everybody, and give them a voice when you're doing it. So that's part of the transparency. I think the issue of conflicts of interest is a huge problem. It's a conflict of interest is not determined for me by what is absolutely legal. It's been determined by our county attorney that our governance is able to give certain people contracts because it really is not a conflict of interest according to Texas Ethics Commission. But yet those people in governance are able to have a partnership with somebody in another business and still give contracts to this person over here and according to the verbiage, in as many as they want, and he's not doing anything illegal. Well, that may be the case. But you know what? To any thoughtful person, it violates their conscience. There's not a person that I've mentioned that to that just wasn't appalled. Me, that's conflict of interest. According to the Texas Ethics Commission, it's not. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, it is not just about real conflicts of interest. It is about perceived conflicts of interest. Listen, people have no trust of government. They have no trust of government. And if we don't develop a standard that is higher, and there needs to be a revamping of not everything, but some of the stuff with greater teeth in our ethics to take quicker action, swifter action against those who refuse to operate according to what is in best interest of the people and have these conflicts of interest. And you take that and you put that in other issues with commissioners, and you've all read all this stuff. It's mind-boggling to me. So
Just further on to that, you on transportation and toll roads, certainly you're against the 249 toll road, as you mentioned in the questionnaire. And then you talked about paying off the 242 toll road bridge, or toll bridge, and paid off as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, and this is not a gotcha question.
Sure.
Do you know how much is owed on it right now?
no, but no, I don't.
Okay.
But-
Would it be taken from $130 million that's currently in the bank? I think you identified in a prior question.
There are a number of opportunities to pay that down, and I have to look at what is statutorily allowed. In other words, we have money set aside for law enforcement. Am I going to take money from that to do this toll bridge?
Yeah.
You know, so I think in examining the whole big picture, I can't give you an exact answer on that, but I do know this, it's like anything else. Is if we've got monies that we're clearing out and pulling out of accounts, putting in a general fund, and that continues to grow and grow and grow, well, what we need to do is we need to figure out a way to get that back to the people and reducing debt, property tax, or whatever the case may be. So I think that's part of it. Concerning the toll road in 249, I talked to those guys down at TxDOT. I went to see them. I think of all of the things that is the most obvious and most blatant violation of public trust is the unwillingness to listen to the people on this that don't want it. TxDOT's going to put the toll road in one way or another. But you know what? I think it's fascinating that from Todd Mission to Navasota, there is no expense to the people. There's no toll. But as all those people, isn't it interesting that all those people coming out of Tomball, all of a sudden you got 3.5 miles for that exit. So you have all of those, and then everything beyond that, we don't have a part of it. What does that tell you about our government? It's not government by the people for the people. It's government to get the people.
Agreed.
That's exactly what is going on.
Yeah.
Not to mention the conflicts of interest in engineering and all those stuff.
Are you familiar with decision analysis as it pertains to business? It's not something that's real common, but oil and gas companies use it.
In terms of that, in terms
governments.
of that phrase, no, not in terms of that phrase.
So
but
it's-
I can envision
Let
what
me,
decision
okay, so let me just
analysis
tell
is.
you what it is.
Yeah.
It's basically oil companies, and I know we're gonna be short on time, but they put a value on each asset that they have, and they risk it. So
Yeah.
you know about risk
Yeah.
from the car
Yeah,
dealership.
sure.
And you can also do that with roads, road life,
Right,
accidents at an intersection.
sure.
When we just went through this bond process, a lot of it was based on maintenance, but they kind of threw everything into a bucket, and we're going to throw that into a bond.
Right.
But it doesn't need to necessarily be in a bond. It could be paid off in short order because these roads, some of these roads are 7 to 10 year life
Sure.
on a rehab.
Right.
So basically, it's what you're doing is you're risking each road and intersection, believe it or not, throughout the county. You're putting it into a big decision tree like a Final Four bracket. You're risking it, you're putting a dollar amount on what the road is worth, and you run it through a computer simulation that ranks and sorts the importance, and then you take what money you have available in the bank, like the $130 million, and you fix the roads that use up that $130 million, then do the rest in short-term bonds. Is that something you would be amenable to doing and implementing?
Well-
NOAC is familiar with it.
Well, you know, I have to look hard at it, but in the car business, we call that cross-collateral guarantees. One dealership's floor plan guarantees another dealership's floor plan. Liability with that is that one of them goes south, you have a huge problem. It comes out of the total bucket. In my judgment, I don't think that bond money should be used for maintenance at all. I think that we put in a road in, we need to calculate where the expense of it's going to be. And, you know, there is, when you think about it.
But what if the road's degrading and you don't have the money, the cash flow to fix it? You're gonna have to take out, you're gonna have to do something from a loan standpoint, right?
Okay, well,
Bond.
first of all, nothing is carved in stone. But in a perfect world, it would seem to me, this is how we do it in business. I have a tower that I put in for water. I know in 10 years I'm gonna have to paint that. So what do? Each year we accrue money towards that. In 10 years, it's fixed. Why can't we do that with roads? Why do we have to take out bonds and loans on something we know is coming 10 years down the road? That's how it's done. That's how business generally does it. Not everybody. And you accrue money. I knew in the car business that we would need alignment machines in two years, 3 years. We started putting money aside towards that into reserve accounts that was designated for that. If we got into a bind, we had the opportunity to take that from it if we wanted to in small business to do that. But the other side of that is if in our situation right now, if we don't have those resources laying around, and to possibly to do a bond, I would rather see the monies go back towards property tax relief myself, as opposed to just fixing a bunch of roads with it.
Mm-hmm.
What I do react to, which makes me crazy, if you pay off 50% of the loan, we turn around and we sell the bond, and then we turn around and refinance another bond for the full amount rather than paying off the road.
Mm-hmm.
Who comes up with this stuff?
They're
So
donors.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean that when I actually looked at it, and I've got a little analysis here that I went through, and we looked at that, and I'm saying, you have got to be kidding me. That can't be true. That's exactly what's happening. So if we have $1 million, easy math. We have $1 million. We pay out $500,000 on it. They turn around, they buy a new bond. They sell it, give the guy a commission, turn around, buy a new bond, and start back at the 100 or start back at the million. Wait a second. Why don't we start it? If we're going to do this, let's refinance and start at the 500 and keep paying it down
Nobody presently has.
like normal people do.
I'll skip my next question and let you guys go
I'm
back
sorry.
for it. Go ahead, Dan.
Many of us recognize that one problem with immigration is that when people come in and get established, then they bring their whole family, uncles or brothers, whatever. And it turns out it's almost exactly the same way in county government. One person gets a job, next thing you know, their dad and their uncle and 3 cousins are working for the county. So what's going to be what's a reasonable policy for nepotism? Should it be just at the extremes of the government? Should it be maybe in the police department? Or should nobody have their spouses and children working with them?
First of all, it's been going on a long time, so immediately eliminating it is going to be tough to do, and will cause hardship to good people who are in a situation. However, I promise you, day one, no more hiring any family anywhere. I ran that in my car business. Let me tell you, when families work together, when they get mad, they walk off together. When they decide they're going to be dishonest, they're dishonest together. When they see something happening, they talk about it and don't say anything. We don't want to get in trouble. Now, I will tell you, my company that I worked for 14 years, they allowed family. And they hired good people, and in my own personal experience, I had my son working since he was 16 years old, and he's still at Northside Lexus. He's 28 years old. He's done outstanding. But I will tell you, when he came to work and he was back in the service department, I told him, I said, Josh, here's all you got to remember. Don't ever stand around. Always keep working. If you don't have something to do, go ask your manager. Because I can't, I'm not going. I can't, and I'm not going to come back and rescue you from anything. And he was on his own, and he worked his way up through. It's amazing the reputation he developed. And when I retired from Northside Lexus, he dropped his master's program and went there, and he's just been making a killing. But there are places that have made it good. But what I have found, and I did this when I was managing Chrysler, Ford, but it was mostly when I was with Ford. People would come in, lady wanted a body shop, wanted to hire her husband. I heard that she hired him. Not a chance. I remember in tears, but we didn't know. I have a partner in the business. I have accountability to people who have put money up in this deal. And my job and in that store and in this job is to protect the assets, the resources of the people of this county who elected us. And that does not include having to give everybody who wants a job, service everybody's car who wants to have it serviced on company dollars, store people's stuff at the county warehouse, as long as they want to do it under the guise of such and such. Even if I've given it to somebody and haven't changed the plate, it's not mine. What's it doing there? I've been elected by the people to protect their assets. And I will do that, and I know how to do it.
Good.
All right. Clerk? We got,
Wait, can I ask one question? I see it's a huge problem with the reputation of Montgomery County all over the state. Huge problem with the lack of unity. All comes back to the fact that there are no ethics in our elected officials. What can the county judge do, and what would you do to change that?
I believe that leadership is everything. I do. When I taught this to my son, to my daughters, and I taught them that I'll show you an exciting, blowing and going place that's doing well, and I'll show you great management. If you have division, if you have problems, if there's confusion, it's because of management. A lot of people just need to be corralled in and be given direction on what they need to do. So we're coming back from a hunting trip one day and we're in a fast food place. And my son, I don't know, 9 years old, 10 years old, we're there and we're waiting and we're waiting and waiting, and it was just like everybody was running and nothing was happening and they just couldn't get it done. And I'm standing there and all of a sudden I get this pull on my jacket like this. I said, "What's up, buddy?" He looks up at me. This is no joke. He looks at me and says, "Dad, management's everything, isn't it?" I think just showing up is the first step. And you don't go in and do a complete sweeping through. I've seen that happen in the car business. When I had the opportunity to go into a couple of these stores, we didn't just blow everybody out. I believe people basically want to do the right thing. They want to operate ethical. They just want to provide for their families. They don't want to get fired, and they don't want to be sideways with those in charge. How can they not be sideways? How can they be how can they avoid being sideways if it is common knowledge that if you talk anything against those in charge, if you ask a question is to have a bad attitude and you risk your job, not to mention hit lists and all the rest that is kind of going through the air, whatever that might be. But the fact of the matter, which by the way is symptomatic of a bigger problem, and that is the centralization of decision-making on non-elected officials that used to be in the hands of the commissioners. I'm out on that. Absolute power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and you see it. And the day that went into place, the guy who ran against him was fired the next day.
Yep.
With no vote from anybody on his decision.
In your research on the 242 toll bridge, did you find that it's breaking even, going in the hole, or is it making money?
It's those who, without me doing the personal research, it's losing. How much it is, I do not know. But from those who are in authority, that has come across. Okay. My real research, my original research, has been on 249 and finding out what it's going to take, when the payout is going to be on this deal. Understand, in a revenue bond, they can make a payoff. They can make a monthly payment. Anything over that, they can bring in. Understand, all the people coming on that road, coming out of Tomball, all those people are going to pay that toll before they get off. There's going to be a lot of money coming in there. And the result of that is they can make whatever monthly payment that is and still have money left over. My question is, okay, then what do we do? You know what the answer that they've given is? To expand the tax base. This is the basis of development. We want to expand the tax base. Okay, let's expand the tax base. And if we do it the right way, then it should lower everybody's taxes, more people paying into the same pool. If you guys are expanding the tax base, why are our taxes going up? It's the most basic question in the world. And it seems like nobody holds anybody accountable on what's going on. I tried to get the various entities that tax. I mean, think about this system. You have an appraisal district that the people on the appraisal district are basically chosen by the recipients of the taxes. Are you kidding me?
You see,
Conflict of interest? Remember the old deal, taxation without representation?
Yeah.
Really? And there's technically, it's not totally there, but almost. And then with those guys,
there.
watch this, you got the people choosing the appraisal district who then are turning around, no joke, who are choosing the chief appraiser. Oh my goodness, you have got to be kidding me. There's no checks and balances in that at all. And then you have the tax assessor collector who's on the board. She can either fight and say, no, we're not doing this, or how's she gonna do that against five guys, especially most of them commissioners or previous commissioners?
she has no vote.
That's right. Well, I know, because they can do whatever, that's exactly right, you're right.
Right.
But she can still express,
Right.
and she can say what they can do, what they can't do. It's kind of like Phyllis up there. Does she run the commissioner's court? You would think, they're constantly asking her, are we allowed to do that, are we not allowed to do that? So, and then you've got, not to mention the appraisal review board, which is administrative judge puts that person in place.
You got another? We got probably about a minute. Let's see. Do you have another? I've got a long one, but,
Well,
I can come up with one.
You had two last time.
huh? 2 minutes?
No, you used two last time.
Oh, well, yeah, no, that's what I was gonna forego.
Well, I was just
Go
gonna
ahead.
ask about,
Go ahead.
what's the most onerous issue facing the country, or a lot of us, is civil asset forfeiture. Government taking people's stuff just because they like it. And I think it's as bad here in the county as it is anywhere. And from what I understand, the main recipients are folks like law enforcement, maybe even the DA. And I guess a lot of it maybe is based on federal law, but what
It
can the
is.
county,
It is.
what can county do to curb that? You know, we're paying officers. We don't need them confiscating somebody's scarab and paying them a 100% bonus. And that's what happens in some areas, and I think
Sure.
it's probably a problem here.
It happens in some areas more than others. But the fact of the matter is, the law enforcement uses it as a means of acquiring assets that they can use, that they justify, that they can use either to sell and make money, to be able to put it into their coffers, or to use their stuff. For instance, I went down to the border, I met with Colonel McCraw. Me and Cecil Bell flew down there, and Will, and we flew in a, what was it, a Cessna? Anyway, it was a cool plane, man. Twin engine, nice.
Twin engine jet or prop?
No, it was a prop.
Turbo?
Yeah. It'll come to me in a second what it was, but it was nice.
321?
No, it had it had a name to it. But anyway, it was used in drug trafficking, and they confiscated it.
Oh, yeah.
So all of a sudden now it is owned by the
State of Texas.
Texas Public Safety, and
DPS.
more power to them. When you
If
have
they convict somebody first, though.
yeah,
That's
of
the
course.
problem.
Well, sure, that's what has to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the deal.
In some cases.
When somebody was driving through an area and they're accused of something, and before they can defend themselves, they lose their asset. Where are we living? I mean, that happens in Venezuela. I mean, that happens in South America.
Mexico.
Yeah,
And
and South
Grimes
Texas.
County,
And
yeah.
Grimes
In
County.
South Texas and
Grimes
other places.
County.
Yeah, you had we had this conversation. So, no, man, I think the due process has to be there. Period. If a person is not a citizen, is undocumented, that's a different issue. My question is, what are you doing here? And they're not entitled to the same rights to due process, even though they say we are, and it looks like they are, but they're not the same rights as a citizen are,
On this,
in my judgment.
I'm not so sure they aren't. I mean, the idea that law enforcement come up and say, I like your computer, give it to me. Even whether they're illegal, crippled, blind, or post, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and there just needs to be a process in place that I don't care who they are, that there needs to be some real live questions and answers done. It needs to be brought before some form of a jurisdiction to make a decision on it, and they just can't just acquire stuff. And that's what's happening. It happens a lot in some of the southern counties, for sure.
And I don't know for sure, but I assume that there's a law that says when law enforcement takes somebody's stuff, they're supposed to acknowledge it with a receipt or
Sure,
something.
yeah.
But none of that ever happens, and there's nobody that has enforcement authority from the legislature, including the Attorney General, to look into that stuff, so they say.
Well, they do have, but whether or not they do. Listen, you know what the problem with passing 1,300 laws is? Nobody knows what we passed. Nobody knows what's in the Constitution. Nobody knows what's in the government code. Nobody knows what's in the counties and all these various things. I have to constantly be looking at that stuff. I mean, all the time. I caught more
The
people.
Nancy Pelosi way, yeah.
Listen, when I was on Human Services, and I still am, I take my iPad, and they're always quoting codes. And I know for a fact they didn't write this bill. This has been given to them by somebody. And one of the things I do is I read what's around that code. Most of the time it's taken out of context. People who are representing them don't even know what the code is. And so you've got 1,300 laws that were passed, 6,600 bills that we all looked at in some form or fashion. And when we continue to get farther and farther away, this has to do with the last question on there, our Judeo-Christian foundation, our moral foundation, then here's what happens. We implement laws thinking that the law is going to keep people from doing things. Do I need to have a law in place that says somebody can't drive on my lawn and break down my mailbox? You know, there's a law, I'm sure, out there. There's other things that are out there like that. But here's what we don't need. If people would operate by our traditional value of do unto others as you'd have them do unto thee, from just the commandments alone, regardless how you feel about all that. And I'm not implying we should put the commandments in all the classrooms of every school and every building, although I promise you if we did, we would see immediate change in the hearts and minds of people. Immediate. I'm not advocating that. All I'm saying is that when we abandon our moral foundation, guys, it's just going to get worse until we won't keep laws at all, and then we are facing a totalitarian regime. Somebody's got to bring order.
Okay, why don't we we'll wrap it at that, and we've got about 5 minutes to prepare for the next interview.
Okay.
You want to cut
You gonna
the
do
camera?
Is that the closing?
Is
Yeah, that's closing.
to close it
Okay.
first? No, not there. Don't you have
You want a
close?
2-minute close?
Yeah, 2-minute close.
2-minute close.
2-minute close.
Okay.
First of all, thank you all for giving me the opportunity once again to express some of the feelings and attitudes I have about this. I will tell you this, my own personal investment in both my legislative position and this position carries over. Kim and I made a substantial investment in this, and you'll be able to see what that is when you look at the ethics in terms of a loan. But we figured this is what we need to do. We've been entrusted by the Lord to be able to do it. We have a commitment to our community and to our county. We love the people, and we love our county, and there needs to be a change. I will tell you right now, we are divided. Montgomery County has a black eye across the state because of the kind of things we've talked about in this meeting today. I believe that I have done and have implemented over the years and have an understanding of ways to fix that. I do not pretend to have all the answers. But I do know this, where I don't have answers, there are people who do. I am a teacher, that means I am teachable. And I look for citizen input. I value citizen input on things. I value citizen input that is good citizen input. But please don't beat up on me if I don't agree with you on something and you haven't read the bill. That's a problem. Because it's now somebody outside of our area is telling us how to think. I believe in this group and in many groups around our county that we've got enough combined intelligence that we work together, we can get this problem of the nepotism, the conflicts of interest, the lack of transparency. We can eliminate this stuff from county government and get back to representing the people. Here's how I look at it. It's like our church. These are not my people. This is not my church. This has been entrusted to me. The county, this is not my county. These are not my people. I don't own them. I work for them. It's a sacred trust. And I just believe that if I had this opportunity, we can fix many of these things in short order, and it'll be exciting. I believe we are in Montgomery County. We need to get back together, and it will bring unity in the county.
All right, thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Now we have the